Guys and gals, we are so excited. We're happy to announce the release of Relief Maker 3. Relief Maker 3 is an absolutely enormous update, covering everything end to end in the software, from tiny things like image-based tooltips so you have a better idea of what things actually do, to a new user interface, step export, undo, redo. The list goes on and on. Most of it driven by user feedback directly from you. Without further ado, let's go ahead and jump in and see what the fuss is about. The first thing that you're going to notice when you open Relief Maker 3 is that it looks completely different, but still familiar. We've done so many improvements to make the experience more efficient and easier to understand. And so let's talk through a little bit of those right now. The first thing you'll see is that we have a new assets panel here. So the screen with the model takes up way more space. We used to have two columns, one for the assets and one for the relief settings. And we figured that we can fit all of that very tidily here. The user interface has a really high contrast, and so you can quickly at a glance see how much of the settings are taken up by a particular bar. And we've implemented lots of little things like being able to select your resolution with a button rather than having to type two numbers every time you want to change it. Of course, you can still do custom. All of the tooltips now have really nice images, so that'll give you a much better idea of what the setting is that you're changing and the effect that you can expect. The next thing that we're going to notice is that we've moved some of the camera settings to the top. So this is our camera bar here, and we have our relief camera, which we're used to, layout if you're using it for multi-model layout, the relief result itself, the ability to reset the view, changing from orthographic to perspective camera and choosing the focal length, and then a reference image, which we'll talk about here in a second. As we start doing things to our model like panning, rotating, maybe we duplicate something and then move our duplicated item away, rotate the scene again, we may find that we've made a mistake. And especially these tiny little adjustments like this that you may accidentally click on the mouse can be super annoying to get back to where you were. But now you can press Control Z and you have a complete undo, redo stack. And this covers model rotations and translations, most of the settings here. And so it makes making a mistake really low stakes. Just press Control Z. It's going to be a huge time saver. Let's quickly touch on the ability to select new materials. So you can see this beautiful new material that we have, but you can modify the materials using the Material tab. You can choose from different kinds of clays, plastics, and metals to make things look really nice and simulate the material that you're working with. Now, similar to Relief Maker 2.0 and earlier, you can still change the lighting by rotating the right mouse button. You have less control than you did using the old lighting system, because this is basically going to rotate the light in a circle. You're not going to get fine control over the rim lighting. However, we still have that available. And so if you do need that, just go to Lighting, Custom, and choose your color, whatever you want. And now you have that really fine-grained control to be able to check all of the lighting. So you might want to work in matte caps until you're ready to do some diagnostics, and then go ahead and use Custom to get some really fine-grained control over your lighting. Let's reset this guy. Let's go ahead and make a relief. So obviously the legendary quality that we're all used to, but we've expanded what you can do with this. So the first thing that we're going to talk about in this line of things is step export. Let's go ahead and export the relief. We'll name it line to step. And here we have our step export parameters. We're not going to go through all of these. That'll be a separate video, but we're going to go ahead and leave all of these things at their existing values and press export. So this is one of those things, if you know, you know. Either you use software that needs steps or you don't. And if you're in CAD world, you use Libre Design, Fusion 360, Inventor, SolidWorks, any of those things. This is going to be huge for you, because what it means is that you can jump into CAD software, you can import that step file, and you can start building real products around it. The step file bridges the gap between serious design work in CAD software and Relief Maker's results. Now we're going to show you some incredible technology that we've developed that allows really fine-grained control over the reliefs. While we do that, we're going to take a quick pit stop to file recent scenes, and we can see that we have the ability to open any of the previous files that we've used to give really quick access to those. So we're going to select this octopus. We want something with a ton of detail so that we can really show this off. Let's go ahead and make a shallow relief, maybe a 28 degree. Let's turn off our bevel. So you may experience this kind of thing where you start to make shallower and shallower reliefs. Maybe it's for a coin or something like that. And as you do that, a lot of the intricate little details maybe get lost in the mix. So you can go down to post processors on your very shallow relief, and you can start to crank up the details. And we're not going to go into the form, mid, and fine in this video, but just so that you can kind of see what it does. We've just brought all that detail back, and we have not gained any significant height from it. So this is extraordinarily powerful, especially for people working with very shallow reliefs, to give you that detail back. The next thing we're going to show is going to be absolutely huge for people that work with multiple models. Have you ever found yourself in this situation and your goal is to make this perfect? You want it to be exactly aligned. Well, you couldn't really do that by eye, or it was a huge pain in the butt, and your results would never be exact. Well, now they can be. We're going to go ahead and click multiple models by holding down Control. We'll go to the new Align and Distribution panel. And from here, we can align the models, for example, on the tops or the mid or the bottoms. In this case, we'll choose mid. And that's only half the story. Now we want to distribute the models evenly. So we can do that by the centers, which will look at the center point of each of the models and make them the same distance. But what you probably really want, and this is really useful for when things are different scales, is to distribute the gaps. And when we distribute the gaps, the visual distance between the bounds of each of the model is going to be the same, allowing for much better visual consistency for models that are next to each other. A lot of times when we're doing stuff, we're not just freehanding. We're working off a more comprehensively thought through design. And for those times, we can open a reference image. In this case, we can scale it up and down, position it left and right, and we can change the opacity. But what this allows us to do is line it up with our backplate. Maybe move it up just a little. And now we can start moving our hummingbirds to be consistent in size, scale, and position to be consistent with the design that we have in mind. A huge time saver that allows you to get much better results, especially when you're working between different products that are all consuming this sketch. Let's go ahead and make a relief of this, and we'll talk about our next big feature. Now that we're ready to go, let's go ahead and go to File, Export Relief, and we're going to talk about scaling our mesh exports. So here's our new export dialog for mesh formats, and we have a new checkbox, Define Units and Size. Now, of course, OBJ and STLs are unitless formats, so this doesn't really matter here. What is important is this number. And this number allows you to scale the output by a certain amount based on either the relief bounds itself, ignoring the backplate, or the total width of the entire thing. This is huge because what it allows you to do is tell your downstream software this is in centimeters or inches or millimeters, and it will interpret correctly and give you the exact size that you need. While we're here, let's make a really quick pit stop to talk about exporting as a solid. Relief Maker 2 did a pretty good job of being able to handle most cases exporting as a solid, but sometimes it would mess up a little bit. We've revamped the algorithms to make that much more robust and give you better geometry when you're exporting as a solid base. Now, if you have more of an image-based workflow and you have really extreme requirements for Z accuracy in the depth, what you can do is go to File, Export Relief, and now you can choose Float Value EXR. So EXR is kind of the industry standard format in terms of what might be used in multiple applications. And here you can choose where the midpoint is. And this is important because if you have a relief that's only above the ground plane, you want to use all that resolution of the 32-bit to be able to capture that. If it goes above and below the ground plane, you need to use 50 so that you can have half the resolution on the top and the bottom. And likewise, if it's recessed, you would want to use 100, and that would allow you to use that full resolution on the bottom. We suggest which one you should do based on the type of relief that you have. And this will allow you to consume the full resolution in downstream programs like ZBrush and things like that. Finally, a little bit of housekeeping that makes your life easier. If you move between machines and you forgot to release the license, now when that dialog pops up on the second machine saying your license account has been exceeded, there's a little button you can press, which will log you in automatically to your new Relief Maker account, and you'll be able to release the license yourself. Likewise, if you go to Help, My Account, you'll also be taken to that same portal, and you'll be able to upgrade your license or get the newest version when it comes out, things like that. We're so excited to see all the things that you guys are going to make with Relief Maker 3 now that your manufacturing pipeline has been opened up with STEP, with all of the amazing new post processors that allow you to really create fine detail and even special effects. For example, we can take the mid all the way down, take the form a little bit down, and get an interesting kind of beveled effect. You can play with these in lots of different combinations to get really cool results. All of them are going to be amazing, and we cannot wait to see what you do.